So thank you. First of all, let me join the other panelists in thanking you for inviting me to speak this evening, my time, and I'm assuming it is a slightly different time from where most of you are. But thank you, and thank you also for having this conversation. I think this is as Ambassador Gold mentioned, I think this is a conversation that needs to be had, and hopefully not just episodic, but a conversation that is durable and sustained. Look, I don't claim to be a scholar of democracies, but I clearly know that I am a citizen in a very vibrant democracy. I've experienced democracy for almost all of my life. And I completely agree with Ambassador Gold when he says that in today's world, we should not take this democracy for granted. And the corollary of that in some ways is that it's not just enough to wish for a democracy, to get democracy, and democracies that we have today are worth understanding and defending, and understanding, I mean, in the context of what the new threats to our democracy are. I also do agree with Ambassador Gold's proposition that there is a need for a more durable, sustained engagement between democracies of the world. And that this engagement of democracies is again not episodic, not tactical, not based on an event in your backyard, or some geopolitical construct that emerges and sets the sun rises one day and sets the other day. I think this conversation about a sustained alliance, durable alliance of like-minded, like-thinking countries and democracies is an absolute need of the hour in terms of all of the challenges that democracies face. I know you've invited me here to speak about the challenges that technology poses to democracies, and I will restrict my next 3-4 minutes or 5 minutes on that. For countries like India, technology has played a big role in altering the narrative of democracy. And I say this in the context of, for many decades, India was seen as this dysfunctional democracy where money sent from Delhi did not reach the beneficiaries. Famously, in the late 80s, there was a prime minister that His Excellency the Governor Arif Mohammad Khan will remember, said that out of every 100 rupees that goes from New Delhi, only 10 or 15 rupees reach the beneficiary. Then there was this other narrative about this democracies being dysfunctional, which is that we never had tax compliance. Tax revenues in a country like India would never catch up with the requirements of a nation that was or meet its ambitions for development and investment. And the third was that in a lot of ways, large democracies like India were unwieldy. Government was far away from citizens, and therefore there was almost embedded in the narrative of democracies the irresponsive or unresponsive governments. If you look at those three aspects that characterize the Indian democracy in particular, and democracies, large democracies in general, for many, many decades, it is technology and the use of technology by Prime Minister Modi, starting from 2014, that has turned that narrative on its head. Governance today, benefits, subsidies go to between the government and the state capital or the central capital to a beneficiary overnight, without any leakage, without any corruption, and an absolute bullet-fired type of a mechanism. The responsiveness of a government today has been completely increased significantly by the way technologies connect government and citizen. And we have today India emerging out of COVID. This is a tremendous piece of data that I'll give you. A country that had a target of $300 billion of tax collection is today out there talking about a 25% excess, overperformance on tax revenues at 375 billion. Again, helped by technology. So I want to make the one point that technology is a great enabler for democracies. I wanted to just make that point with 3 examples. But it is clear, with the way that the internet has been now broken up or reorganized from the utopia that we believed it was into this big splinter net dominated by these big tech platforms, that there is a new challenge for democracies. The challenges come from the monopolies and the power of these big tech platforms, the user harm that is being coming as a consequence of that, biases, and intelligence-led kind of corporate biases that are driving the narrative in one direction or the other direction online, and fake news and the openness of these platforms. So I just want to lay this out for you that as much as technology is benefiting democracies, there is a need for countries around the world, especially democracies around the world, to start thinking about these downside risks that these platforms represent. There is a research study that came out recently that was quoted by Milken Institute that says fake news travels, the velocity of fake news is 6 to 7 times faster than the truth. Now, if you have a platform and you have these multiple platforms that almost dominate the internet and lend themselves very willingly or unwittingly to be weaponized against particular classes of people, communities, or countries, then we are talking about really a reason for us all to be deeply concerned about how our democracies can deal with this type of challenge. And I have a limited amount of time. I realize that. I'll just end by saying the following. Technology is good. I have lived all my life working on technology. There is tremendous amount of good that can come out of technology. But for those who want to protect our precious democracies, we need to look at the flip side of technology very, very carefully, create a global partnership and almost like a global regulatory agreement that says that while the good of the technology must be exploited for all our citizens, the bad of the technology, the risks of the technology, especially these emerging technologies like AI and many other things, need to be carefully regulated, carefully understood, and not as some binary between regulation and free speech, but really about addressing the strength and strengthening our democracy and the reach of democracy to every citizen. I will end there. This is a topic that is worth speaking about for hours and hours, and I hope the organizers will consider having many such follow-up discussions. Thank you again for the opportunity, and thank you for inviting me.
Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.